to my live. The SG contribution rate, super guarantee contribution rates increasing from 10% to 10.5% as of the 1st of July. I posted a quick video about that, and lots of people have just been on here now asking questions, and I've been responding to a few, so I thought I'd jump on live, see if anyone catches this. I'm having some dramas with my Wi-Fi, so who knows if anyone's even going to see this. If you are there, let me know. But just thought I'd jump on. Lots of people asking questions on my most recent video about super contributions. The threshold or the amount that your employer has to pay for you is increasing to 10.5% from the 1st of July. So I thought I would jump on and see if anyone's got any questions, anything you want to know about super, limits, thresholds, what happens if you excess, tax, all the rest of it. Hello, a few people jumping on. Thank you for joining me. Kind of sat here on the floor, not doing terribly much on a Friday evening. Wherever you are, hopefully you're having a good time. Hello. Thank you for joining me. So super, maybe let's talk through the caps. Super's a pretty boring topic, but I spent most of my life dealing with this and talking it through. So let's do Super 101 whilst I sit here on the floor. Do I have to pay the full CGT on RSUs? So RSUs, it's actually not CGT. RSUs, once they vest to you, it's ordinary income. So restricted stock units, you'll have some stock, and as they vest to you, that is treated as ordinary income. So people that get RSUs typically work in tech, might be working for US tech companies. Here in Australia, chances are you're probably earning a pretty healthy income, in my experience. And then the RSU, as it vests, the restricted stock unit, as it vests, becomes ordinary income that you then have to pay tax on top of the tax that you're already paying on your income. That's probably $200,000 or $300,000 to begin with. So lots of tax, and it can end up with people feeling they kind of get trapped. You get this stock, lodge your tax return, then all of a sudden you have a tax bill, all of a sudden you have a great big tax bill that you need to pay. You end up on, then the ATO sends you this notice saying you got a tax bill. Then not long after they say, because your tax bill was so high, you're on quarterly installments and you're kind of constantly chasing your tail. What people often do, they'll often sell some of that stock to cover the tax bill. That will then allow them to cover the tax bill. Sell some of the stock to cover the tax bill if they haven't prepared for it beforehand. So if you are working for someone and you know you've got these RSUs, you know they're going to vest, part of your planning, what you want to be doing is putting away some money to account for the tax so that you can cover the tax bill and hopefully hold those shares to help grow your wealth. Lots of other people sell all of the shares as they get them. You know, if you work for Google, you work for Apple, you work for Salesforce, all of these types of companies, they all have the same kind of schemes. A lot of people actually end up selling the stock. It vests, it's taxable income in that year anyway. They sell the whole stock and then use the money to pay down their debt and then re-leverage their assets going forward in a more tax-effective manner. So if you need some help, reach out. We do a fair bit of work in that space with people in tech and their employee schemes. Anyone else got any questions? Elaborate advice makes so much sense. Thanks. It's my job to try and explain these fairly complex topics in a way that most people can understand. I've had to adapt over the last couple of years. I'm a big fan of the whiteboard, so in the office, the few days a week that I'm in the office, there's a great big whiteboard in all of the meeting rooms, and I bring my pack of whiteboard markers. With me to the meetings and kind of jump up on the board and do a doodle of whatever I'm doing. Often they look very similar to the videos that I put on here, or I scratch out a strategy diagram on a piece of paper. How are stock RSUs different from ESS? They're all fairly similar. So employee share schemes, the employee share schemes, they may be ones that you're actually buying. So RSUs will be stock that's given to you. Typically, it might be like a sign-on bonus. They'll give you some to come and join the company. They'll give you some stock as a sign-on bonus, and it's restricted for a while, and it ultimately vests to you. The employee share schemes, you'll normally be buying them. So you might be sacrificing part of your wage to buy the stock at a bit of a discount. So it's participating in the employee shares, employing the employee shares, and buying part of the business. Probably slightly different tax implications. You really need to get the details of the scheme for the business that you work in, and understand how that works. So the business that I work in, First Financial, we have an employee share scheme for our staff. So you can elect to take part of any bonus that you may be entitled to in employee shares. There's then a deferral on the tax on those. So, for example, I was going to get a $10,000 bonus. I could elect to take all of that in shares in First Financial in the employee share scheme. I'm not taxed on that $10,000. It kind of defers the tax to later down the track. We have a whole scheme for that. So you need to understand your scheme for the business that you work in. It's going to be different for everyone. Anyone else got any other questions? What was I trying to get to? Super 101. Super 101 is a bit hard to do without a diagram, so maybe we won't do that. But the caps, $27,500 of pre-tax contributions, doing a fair bit of work for people at the moment because it's starting to get up to something meaningful. If you've got less than $500,000 in super, less than $500,000 in super, you'll probably be eligible for, you will be eligible to use catch-up concessional contributions. And the catch-up concessional contributions are actually starting to get to a pretty significant number for a lot of people. So we're now up to the 4th year of the clock, counting towards what will eventually be 5 years of catch-up concessional contributions. So we're in year 4 right now. 3 years of $25,000 each, so that's $75,000. Plus this year's limit of $27,500 is $102,500. You can, if you haven't used up all of that, you can go back and use it up in the current year for people with bigger incomes, or they've got a capital gain this year for some reason. It's worthwhile exploring with your accountant or with your advisor. What salary would you suggest is required to hit the full $27,500 limit comfortably? It's not really a salary question. That's a what do you want to be doing question. So you could be earning $50,000 a year and voluntarily salary sacrifice a large portion of that to get you to the $27,500 limit. Depends who you work for. Some employers will pay what's currently 10%, soon to be 10.5% on your full salary. So I have some clients that earn $400,000 and $500,000 a year, and their employers pay 10% super contributions on their whole salary of $400,000 or $500,000 a year. So year in, year out, they're putting 40, 50 grand a year is going into super from their employment. That means they're constantly breaching the cap, and we have to deal with them breaching the cap, but they're comfortably exceeding the cap. So what salary would you suggest to require to hit the full $25,000? As I said, it's up to you. Depends on how old you are and what other things you've got going on in your life. If you're 25 years old or 30 years old or 35 or whatever, and you've just bought your first house and you've got a great big mortgage, it might not be an amazing idea to be pumping a whole lot of money into super. The tax benefits are great, but outside of that, you might have other competing priorities outside of super that may be better. Hey, love your content. What does indexation mean in regards to HEX? Isn't it like interest? Yeah, this is a big one. So thanks for bringing it up. So HEX is HEX or help debt. HEX debt, help debt is the kind of the education system, university education system, where you've had some government help to pay for the fees. I went through university on exactly the same scheme and paid it back after I started working. That the amount of money that you owe gets indexed every year, and it's some number to do with inflation and wages and all of these kind of things. They come up with a number. That's about to be indexed on the 1st of July, I'm pretty sure it is, and I think I saw somewhere the number's going to be 3.9%. It's the biggest indexing, because inflation's so high at the moment, it's the biggest indexing of those HEX debts or HELP debts, I think, ever. So it's a big increase. So another colleague of mine, well, it doesn't work at First Financial, but another financial advisor I know was talking the other day about considering if you should look at paying off some of your HEX debt before you get the 3.9% indexing. Whereas a lot of people historically have said, the rate that the HEX debt is indexed at is so low, you're better off paying off other interest rates. But if you compare that to a home mortgage now, the HEX is going to be indexed at a higher rate than what most people's variable mortgages are at. So there's a big kicker coming. Hopefully that helps answer your question. Hey, if I'm domiciled outside of Australia but earning an Australian salary, is there anything I can do? So what's going to matter is your tax residency. So domiciled, what I'd need to know is your tax residency. So as in Australia, you pay tax on, as an Australian tax resident, you pay tax on your worldwide income. There's different treaties with different countries to try and avoid double taxation with different countries, but you're taxed on your worldwide income here in Australia. If you are a foreign tax resident that earns income in Australia, you have to pay tax in Australia on your Australian sourced income only. So it's fairly complicated. Domiciled outside of Australia but earning an Australian salary, is there anything I can do? Going to depend on where you're at. I've got a few clients that live overseas. A client that I'm doing some work for at the moment is about to take up an expat gig in the UK, and they're arranged, so they're planning on coming back to Australia. They're going to do the expat thing for a few years and come back to Australia. So a lot of the planning that we're putting in place is about continuing to build up assets here in Australia, because that's going to be where they plan on retiring. So we want to keep building up assets here in Australia. Seek some advice, and need to know a little bit more about your tax residency status. Is financial advice tax deductible? So the initial upfront advice fee isn't tax deductible, but the ongoing fee in relation to your income, structuring of your income and those kind of things, the ongoing advice fee is tax deductible, but the initial $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 engagement fee isn't tax deductible. So if you're saying if you have the capital equivalent to your HEX, is it wise to pay it off now? Look, Reserve Bank of Australia, it's going to depend on what you've got going on. So as with a lot of the answers to things that I have here, I'm going to say it depends. If you have no other debts, no other use for this money, you've already bought a house, all of these kind of things, then maybe it is a good idea. And for a whole lot of other people, it's probably not going to be a good idea. So if you have a HEX debt, for example, $100 in this, that means it's $309. Yep, exactly. That's it. So it's going to go. So for every $100 in HEX debt that you have, will on the 1st of July become $103.09 exactly. So it's going to go up by 3.9%, the biggest increase in that, in the indexing of the HEX debts we've seen in forever, really. Can you please tell me about how much I can pay into my super as catch up for the last 3 years? I can't tell you that, because it's going to depend on how much money you've put into super in the first place. The easiest way to find that out is if you go into your MyGov account. So log into MyGov. There's a tile there for the ATO. Once the ATO page opens up, across the menu across the top, there's a drop down. There's one that says superannuation. Click on that. One of the drop downs there is something about information, and you'll click through to this thing called catch up concessional contributions. That will tell you how much you're able to put in under these catch up concessional contribution limits. That'll tell you the amount that you can put in, what you've got available as you catch up, if you are planning on doing it. So please don't take my TikToks and my lives as advice to say, hey, go and do it. All I'm just telling you is where you can find the information about how much you're able to put in. How much you're planning on increasing interest rates? Yeah, wouldn't we all love to know that? 2%. But then again, have my predictions ever been right? Yeah, if I was to have a guess, I'd Reserve Bank of Australia, my guess would be 2% as well, increase of 2% from where we were. So a few of you jumping on and getting the comments going. I've done live a few times, but never really had any interactions. So good on you all for jumping on. I can appreciate that this can be a fairly boring topic. Hopefully I'll make it a little bit interesting and explain things in a way that you can understand. Anyone else got any questions I can answer? Yeah, that's all right, Susie. You'll find it on your MyGov account. It's 25,000 for the last 3 years and whatever you haven't used there, but the numbers on MyGov. Whenever I'm doing advice for clients on this, and I'm doing a lot of it right now about using these catch-ups, I'm always getting them to log into their MyGov account and just sending me a screenshot of what's there. That's going to be the source of truth. That's what the ATO's. What degree do you have to study to become a financial advisor? So the advice, becoming a financial advisor has changed a lot in the last couple of years. The education standards have increased significantly. You need to do a degree in a related area. There's a professional year that you need to do. There's an advisor exam that you need to sit. So there's many years worth of studying. There's a few universities. I know University of South Australia. One of the guys in my team is doing a degree through the University of South Australia. I think Deakin in Melbourne. I think Swinburne maybe as well, possibly. There's a few universities around that have a degree that gets you about as close to qualified as a financial advisor as you can through university. But now there's like there's a professional year that everyone has to do as well. So you need to have a degree, then you need to get a job in a financial planning business, one that's going to support you to do this professional year. At First Financial, the business that I'm a part owner in and where I work, we've got 4 or 5 people doing this professional year, and it's broken into 4 quarters of studying that you need to do and support that you need to provide, or people need to provide to you to help you get there. So it's a bigger deal becoming a financial advisor now than what it ever was. How do RSUs? I missed that one here. How do RSUs given from a US company taxed? It's going to depend on your company. I don't know. All the ones that I've come across, they're getting RSUs in US companies like Google, for example. I've come across a few people that work at Google. They're getting stock in the US company, but as it vests, it's just taxed here in Australia on the income that they earn. And no interest in economics or finance until the world started breaking apart. Have you ever met the bald tax crypto guy? You know who I mean. You're talking about Harry Dell? No, I have never met him. He's in Sydney. I'm in Melbourne. We've commented and shared a few videos backwards and forwards and things, but no, never met him in person. What made you want to become a financial advisor? I kind of fell into it, to be honest. I did a commerce degree at university, and when I finished university, like most people, I took the first job that someone offered me. That was working in a super fund. I worked for Mercer, one of the big super funds that does the administration for a lot of the corporate funds, BHP, Qantas. A lot of the big corporates use Mercer as the administrator for their super funds. I worked there for nearly 2 years. My last role that I had there was training some people that had come out from India on how to do the job. The job that I was doing was being outsourced to a team in India. So I trained a whole lot of people on how to do the job. Kind of did myself out of a job in the process. Started looking around and ended up getting a job in financial advice. So I started working for the business that I'm now a part owner of. Nearly 15 years ago, I started out as junior as can be in the business, kind of filling in all the paperwork and the forms and things for the implementing the advice from who's now a managing director, Ben, filling for his advice that he was providing to clients. I was filling in the forms and kind of worked my way up. Once I started working in the space, I was just blown away by the strategies and what we were able to do, how we were able to help people. Absolutely loved it. It was just like a sponge soaking everything up, and I've kind of stuck around ever since. It's a good time to learn. What about tax income in PNG and sent to Australia for home maintenance? Will that get taxed as well? I don't know. Sorry, you're going to have to talk to an accountant. I'm not an accountant. Do you use Xplan much for SOAs? Yeah, so our whole business is run off Xplan. That's the CRM that we use. That's the modelling that we use. That's the SOA generation that we use. That's our tasking. That's everything. Without Xplan, First Financial would come to a grinding halt. We use it for everything. It records all of our client portfolios, all of our client data. As I said, SOAs are generated out of there, modeling's done out of there, our bulk client communications all come out of there. Yeah, we use Xplan for everything. I myself don't write the advice. I don't write the SOAs, the advice documents. I'm talking with the clients, understanding where they're at, developing the strategies, making the recommendations, and then we have a team of paraplanners that do the writing of the documents that I then later present to the clients when we're looking at doing things. Mercer is terrible. Aussie Super is cheaper and much better returns over the last 5 years. I can't comment on Mercer on one being better than another. I'm just saying I worked for Mercer. I was in the processing team, so people that were rolling over money and switching investments from one to another. I was one of a few people in there, kind of implementing all of that. Is financial advice fees tax deductible? Yeah, someone else asked this a little bit earlier on. The initial advice engagement fee isn't tax deductible, but the ongoing advice fees typically are. Is in-house paraplanners or overseas? We use a combination of both. So we have a team of in-house paraplanners, and when there's too much work, actually we don't use any overseas paraplanners. We have a team of in-house paraplanners, and when there's too much advice going through the team, which is a lot right now, given we're getting close to the end of the financial year, we use a number of different outsourced paraplanning service providers, but they're all Australian based, so they might not necessarily be in Melbourne, the people that are doing the paraplanning service. But they're all in Australia. Do you see an issue with the lack of financial education in school? Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. There's a lack of education. There's a lack of financial education generally, just understanding tax, superannuation, what does it all mean, the benefit of putting a little bit of extra away now, mortgages, how does that all work? Absolutely. One of the guys in my team has actually been invited, and I think it's fantastic. I've really supported him in going and doing it. One of the guys in my team is going back to present to his school next week, just on talking about tax and superannuation and what happens when you get your first job and all of these kind of things, because we're not taught that stuff in school. Very small world. I think TikTok is stalking me when your videos come up in my feed. A very small world. I think TikTok is stalking me when your videos come up in my feed one day. Power TikTok Oz. Do we know each other? It's hard to tell this on TikTok because no one really uses their name. I've obviously got my name, but no one else really does. Live nearby, went to school with your wife, love the vids, solid content, very informative. Now you've got me wondering who you are. You're going to have to tell me afterwards who you are. Is it better to pay yourself as a dividend or a salary? Better to pay as a dividend or a salary? So most business owners will pay themselves a salary up until a point, and then pay the rest of their profits out as a dividend. So if you own hopefully, and I've unfortunately come across more people that don't get this right, but if you, where was I going with this? Owning your own business through a family trust allows you to separate. You can kind of pay yourself a wage and distribute the profits and the dividends out separately. So if you have a company, you own your own company, you're running a small business, whatever it is, and you pay yourself a salary through there, that's fair enough. And then the profits you can distribute out through your family trust as a dividend, and either to you or someone else in the family unit. But yeah, get some advice from your accountant about how to set that up. Where my involvement there is typically with the is with the accountants in kind of helping work through the strategy, but that kind of tax advice tends to come from the accountants. Once you max out your tax bracket, then go dividend. Yeah, but the income that you get from the dividend is still going to be taxed. Now you'll get credit for the franking or the tax that the company's already paid. You'll get credit for that, but the dividend is still income. It's still going to be added on top. If you can distribute it to someone else, it's going to be better. What happens if someone in pension mode decides to unretire? Can they open another super fund? Yeah, you can. So that won't be one of the quirks of super. So once I guess, what is retirement? Maybe we can talk about that. So retirement means different things at different ages. For people under the age of 60, you have to. I guess firstly you have to meet this thing called preservation age. We're getting pretty close to that being 60 for just about everyone now, so call it 60. So you have to meet preservation age. Then over the age of 60, between the ages of 60 and 65, you just need to stop working for a company. You could work for company A 100 hours a week, and then go and work for company B 100 hours a week, but you stop working for company A, go and work for company B. Then that means you've satisfied retirement. Is the definition of retirement is a gainful employment arrangement has come to an end after the age of 60. If you're over the age of 65, you are automatically qualify for retirement or unrestricting your super money. So then you can start a full retirement pension, what you're talking about here. What if someone in pension mode decides to unretire? So you need to satisfy a condition of release to meet this retirement condition and access your super in the form of a pension. Assuming you've done that, that's fine. The next day, you can go back to work. That's perfectly fine and keep contributing to super. From the 1st of July, so a month or so's time from now, you'll be able to contribute to super right through until age 75 without needing to worry about working or not. So provided you have less than 1.6 or $1.7 million, depends on when you started a pension, but provided you've got underneath that cap, you can contribute money to super right through until age 75 without needing to worry about work. So this kind of idea of unretiring doesn't really matter that much. Hopefully that helps. QRQ777. That's all the questions. I've been on here for a whole lot longer than I thought I would. Anyone else got anything? Reserve Bank of Australia, you're often good for some comments and stuff. Where's Albo? Reserve Bank of Australia, do you remember that guy Albo that was commenting on a few of my videos? He wasn't the real Albo, but anyway, Albo's off, gone and won the election. Hey James, happy Friday back to you. Can't believe it's 10 o'clock and I'm sitting on the floor here talking super and tax and stuff on TikTok Live. I missed him. That Albo that was commenting, I haven't seen him for a while. He did have some pretty funny comments. Have you ever thought about doing a financial podcast for basic financial literacy? I actually have a podcast. So if you search my name, James Wrigley, on Spotify, Apple, all of those places, you'll come across it. I haven't posted anything for a long, long while. For a while there, I was doing a whole lot of interviews. So right at the very start of COVID, on my LinkedIn page, I had LinkedIn Live and I was doing lunchtime live. So we called it lunchtime live. I was just interviewing people, talking about their lives, how they got to where they got to, all of these kind of things. So there's lots and lots and lots and lots of podcast stuff there. I've done a few longer videos on YouTube and live on LinkedIn and stuff. The audio's on there, so have a listen. There are some. I've got some podcasts that I've recorded that I haven't published. I just haven't got around to it. Speak to a few clients. This idea of what we call retire life ready. So I'm just kind of going through with clients about what they did to prepare for retirement, what's retirement like now versus what they thought it was going to be, all of those kind of things. I've got a couple of them that I need to put up. Usmanul, what happened to my question? What was your question? Sorry, I'll go back here. See if I can see it. If I missed your question, my apologies. Don't know, can't see it, but ask it again. What's the deal with an 80k salary package and the new 10.5 super contributions? Yeah, that's what prompted this live, because I put a video up about this and lots of people were asking questions. So if you're on an $80,000 salary package and you don't get a pay rise on the 1st of July, your take-home pay will go backwards. Right now, your employer will be putting 10% of your salary, included in that package, to super. As of the 1st of July, they'll have to put 10.5%, which will mean there'll be less money for you to take home unless you get a pay rise to compensate for it. What would be my new take-home wage? It's going to be less. Get out a calculator and divide $80,000 by 1.105, I think it is, if my maths is right. That'll tell you what your take-home, or that'll tell you what your pre-tax wage is, and then you'll have to put that into a tax calculator and work it out. Will the $27,500 cap be raised in the future? Yes, it probably will. That's linked to AWATI, average ordinary weekly times earnings. So it's effectively the wages growth. As wages growth goes up, the $27,500 cap will be indexed up as well, but it gets indexed in $2,500 increments. So it typically takes a few years for the wages growth to increase enough to that. Seems like you're having a big Friday night talking super, mate. Enjoy. Yeah, I am. I was sitting here actually recording some other videos. I tend to do some work. My wife is at work. She'll be home soon. So I tend to do some work when she's not here. The kids are in bed. Don't do too much else. Wages growth goes up. Since when, Chase? Yeah. Thoughts on super withdrawals. Thoughts on a super withdrawal strategy. Super withdrawal strategy, there are none. Or if there are, people that have got these schemes to access super prior to preservation age will actually end up in jail. So you want to try and avoid that at all costs. Otherwise, you need to just wait until you're 60 and then you can withdraw your money. There's some strategies that we do around withdrawing money and then putting it back into super to try and minimise tax on that. So not many people realise, but your super contributions when they're paid, your super benefits when they're paid to an adult beneficiary are going to be taxed at 17% on a fair portion of the money. So there's a strategy that we implement for people once they're retired and over the age of 60 to pull a lump sum of money out and put it back in again. That has the effect of changing the components around and switching the taxable money to tax-free money and can save a whole lot of money in retirement. Love your content, mate. Appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. I can't appreciate all of you guys. I can't believe there's 11,000 people following me here on TikTok and I'm talking about money and superannuation and retirement and investing. Seemingly pretty boring topics, but lots of people following. There's certainly no dancing or singing and hardly any music. Is she a financial advisor too? No, my wife is a midwife. She works at one of the hospitals here in Melbourne, so she has she quite often on a Friday night, or just about every Friday night, and often on a Saturday night, she'll do the PM shift, so she doesn't get home until about 10:30 or something. Interested in sharing any budget spreadsheets, etc. So this one, what's his name? His name escapes me at the moment. My Millennial Money. What's the guy at My Millennial Money? Glenn James. If you're looking for kind of budgeting tips and spreadsheets and things, look up Glenn James' spending plan. He's the guy that does the My Millennial Money podcast and that whole whole kind of group of podcasts. He has an amazing tool. I bought it years ago to just see what it was all about. It was brilliant, and he's made it a whole lot better than what it was when I bought it years ago. He's now got a series of videos, but ultimately you kind of get to this spreadsheet around, you plug in all of these details and it tells you how to set up your bank accounts and stuff. I think it's like $100 or something like that. It's absolutely fantastic. So many people, when they come to me saying, you know, I need help with budgeting and setting up bits and pieces, that's the best place to start. Don't spend $3,000 on me. Sort out your you use the Glenn James spending plan first and then come to me afterwards. More deliveries than Shane Warne. What's the best way to reach the 1.7 million cap? What's the best way to reach the $1.7 million cap? Putting money into super. And so, as crazy as it is, you kind of want to do that as soon as you can. So the $1.7 million cap limit, once you get to there, you can't put any more after-tax money into super. But your investments can grow past $1.7 million. So you want to try and get to that as soon as you can. I've got a client of mine that's just sold a business for many, many, many millions, and it's the second time that he's sold a business for many, many, many millions. We're about to get to start to him to put some big after-tax contributions into super, because he's got so much of it, and it's more just a tax arbitrage. If we can get a lot of money into super between him and his wife and get their super balance up to $3.5 million as quickly as possible, they'll have this big pot of money sitting in a super fund, and it's a self-managed super fund that's only going to be paying tax at 15% on its earnings. It's the lowest tax rate he's going to be able to get anywhere, and it's an investment vehicle. It's not so much about retirement; it's a tax arbitrage for him. So the best way, or the fastest way, is contributing money, and then you get returns on that. You've been boosted me with your interest rates, bro. Straight up, bro. Interesting. So you can't make post-tax non-concessional contributions once you hit the cap. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So that's exactly right. So the $1.7 million cap is it impacts you in two parts. It impacts you in retirement. You can't move more than $1.7 million into into a pension fund. A pension fund in retirement doesn't pay tax on its earnings. You can't move more than $1.7 million across to there. Anything more has to sit on the accumulation side, where it will continue to pay tax at 15 cents in the dollar. But also, once you get to this $1.7 million cap, you can't make any post-tax non-concessional contributions. As you said, you can't make any more of those. So mathematically, you want to try and get to that $1.7 million cap as soon as possible, so that then your investments can grow past that. You can still make concessional contributions, so the tax deductible ones, you can still make those, but you can't make any non-concessional. So you want to get it to grow, get there as soon as you can. All other things being equal, please, this is an advice. And and then get that balance to grow. Can we make personal contributions up to 27 through MyGov or direct it to our fund? You make your super contributions direct to your fund, not to MyGov. And just be careful with that $27,500. If you are an employee and your employer is making contributions for you, it's only the difference. Up to $27,500, your employer's contributions will count direct to the fund. Yep, as the Reserve Bank of Australia said. And if you are doing it personally, make sure you complete a notice of intent to claim form. I'm going to do a video on this actually. Haven't got around to it yet. I'll do a video on how to complete your notice of intent to claim form. That will mean you'll claim that money as a tax deduction, and it will go through against your $27,500 cap. Otherwise, it'll go against your after-tax cap if you're putting your own money in. Reserve Bank of Australia, do you work in financial advice, or what is it that you do? Because you know a lot of this stuff and you're really helpful in answering a lot of questions on my videos too. You've answered the questions before I've had a chance to answer them. Just a nerd. You and me both. Do you wear glasses? I don't know, how about we wrap this up? Anyone got any last minute questions? I've been sitting here for far longer. I'm actually sitting on the floor. I wasn't expecting to be doing this live for anywhere near as long as I have. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for joining me. This is the most successful live that I've ever done. Normally you get those people wanting to do those stupid battles and I can't stand them. I don't know what, it's people that I think they're joining to like have a conversation with me, but then they just read the comments from their followers, and I don't understand this battle stuff. I think that means I'm old. Thank you all for joining me. I might call it a day there or an evening there. Enjoy your evening. It's starting to get late. This was good fun. I'll try and do a live some other time. It seems like later in the evening works better for you guys. Thanks, Reserve Bank. Good to have you there. I'll see you online soon. Bye all. How do I end this thing? What do I press?